It is once again time to turn our attention now over to the markets. He's one of the most requested guests that we have here on the Market Journal. On Wednesday, we traveled out to Seward to catch up with our friend Mike Briggs from Briggs Feed. Here is Mike's thoughts on the cattle markets. Mike, good to have you on the program.
Thanks. What do we got going today?
Well, we still have record prices to talk about. We're live and feeder cattle. How long do you think this could last?
I think could go along for quite a while for two reasons. One, I think the economy is on fairly solid footing. We still have poor leadership in Washington, so who knows what's going to happen there, but I think the economy is on fairly solid footing and nothing has changed fundamentally, and more feeder cattle are not just going to show up next year. They're not there. We didn't have enough moisture soon enough, I believe. It's going to be interesting to see how many people retained heifers so that maybe in another year we can have more calves, but there's not going to be more calves next year. So the actual supply of feeder cattle and therefore beef really isn't going to change very much.
As a feedlot owner, is it tough to find cattle you're wanting to buy at these prices?
Oh, you can find them, you just can't afford them. I mean, it's just ridiculous what's going on right now. Nobody ever imagined prices getting this high. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but it's just surprising how you've taken feeder cattle over $250 on the board, and you've got fat cattle up here. You know, we're getting close to $2 a pound live, and at times we have gotten it if you gridded the cattle. So the price of cattle is amazing to us. I think sometimes cattle feeders are their worst enemy when it comes to, oh, they'll never pay that for that. They'll never pay for meat that's at that price. They keep doing it. So I think we need to maybe quit beating ourselves down and maybe pat ourselves on the back a little bit, because we have improved our product and we have a solid demand base now.
That's a good segue for a topic I wanted to bring up. The price of the beef cutout price, I should say, dipped a little bit. Darren Newsom, who comes on the program regularly, shared a graphic of that. Is that seasonal or perhaps a indicator of things to come on the economic front?
Absolutely seasonal. It happens every year. You have that kind of cutoff at the 4th of July as your last kind of beef holiday again until Labor Day, and we kind of swoon in there. We make a little run up when they're picking up their Labor Day supply, and then after Labor Day it tanks again on us, and then it runs hard into the end of the year. I don't see that. I don't see the seasonals changing. The dips aren't going to be as big.
Okay.
The dips aren't going to be as big. They're not going to last as long. And I still think this thing powers into the end of the year. Now, we have seen placements. I've been pretty bullish December for quite a while, fourth quarter. I'm gonna have to temper that a little bit because we've seen pretty good placements back against that. So maybe that won't get as wonderful as I was hoping for. But you can see in the deferred futures, next April's way up there.
Had a couple of viewer questions come in this week. Want to get to Scott's question. He noted the noise around more packing facilities is obviously the loudest when it comes to when prices are not where they are like that we see today. Do you still see some momentum for perhaps the independent processor out there to be able to build a facility?
That is a great question. We discussed that on one of my conference calls today. And a lot of us that have seen this several times, we tried investing money in a packing plant once. Of course, that money's gone forever. This packing plant deal, the government allowed these packers to consolidate and get so big that they have such a chokehold on this deal, it's really hard for new entry. And unfortunately, like you said, the impetus to build a new packing plant is when the cattleman is getting the dog beat out of him and prices are terrible. Well, by the time they get the thing constructed, the cycle has changed and now it doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what's going to happen with these plants in North Platte and the one they're trying to build in either Missouri or Iowa. Either it's not going to happen, or if it does happen, it's probably going to fail, because until we see a change in the cattle supply, there's not going to be enough cattle to go around. And those big four are not going to let Johnny come lately have any cattle. It's just the way it's going to be.
We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Also had another viewer question. David wrote in this week and asked if you could explain how the cash cattle market works. A little context to his question. On commentary, we see it's always the feedlot or the packer. One of them's going to blink. That's how it's brought forward.
Pretty much what it is.
Is that how it works behind the scenes?
It's pretty much what it is. It's just another deal. It's a, for lack of a better term, game of chicken every week. Who blinks first? And a lot of that's depending, everybody watches what the board does every day. If you got a down day on the board, the feedlot guy feel a little weaker handed. If the board's up, everybody feels like they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I think people are realizing in the feed yard business how short we are of cattle now, and I think we're fighting a little better. Last week, the cash trade was terrible. They didn't want to pay up, and we held on to the cattle. Now, we can only do that for about so long. Cattle are not a storable commodity, but you usually have a 2, 3, maybe a 4-week marketing window where you can play with them a little bit. And everybody held in pretty tight last week. Now, for me, that kind of screwed me up a little bit because I had to back up some cattle that want to come into the feed yard. That never makes people happy, but I'm going to try and fight my best to get higher money for these cattle because good luck finding them.
You thinking about wet corn yet?
Yeah, that's a good question also. I'm a little bit concerned. I know my family, my farmers say that our dryland corn is going to be nothing. So they're like, I don't know how much corn we're going to have to put in the high moisture pit because we'll probably cut all of our commercial corn for silage because roughage is so high, so we just have to put up more silage. So I'm going to have to be buying a lot of corn in the neighborhood to fill the pits. I'm going to be interested to see what this does. This has been a very interesting week in corn. I think from this week, from when we started, I think corn's up 60 cents. So it's moved pretty hard, pretty fast. We'll see where it goes. I know all the stuff with the grain portal out in Ukraine, that's kind of a problem right now. We have some really hot, dry weather coming in, and I don't know if there's enough subsoil for this crop to get through that. And how long is that hot and dry going to last? You know, it could still fry all these crops and we'd be right back in the frying pan again. So I'm a little bit concerned about it. So it may be a situation like it was last year where we put up a lot of high moisture corn, so we've got control of the corn irregardless of price.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, you always leave us with some wise words of inspiration about the markets, particularly on the cattle front. What would you like to leave us with?
I want the feed yard guys to keep fighting. We finally got the stick. I say we use it. The packer had the stick for a long time. It's going to be interesting to see what the packer does. Everybody wants to say that, well, this year's going to be like 215. It's not, because they can't close packing plants anymore. If they do, it'll be a real shock to me. They can drop their hours to 32 and stop Saturday kills, and that's probably what's going to happen. I don't even know if there's enough cattle for that. So I think the cattle feeder's in the driver's seat for a little bit. Just wish you wouldn't be so glassy-eyed when you went to the sale barn to buy feeder cattle, but anyway.
Thanks for the time, Mike. We always
Thank you.
appreciate it.